Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Vishan Borich from Marshall Way Network. And today we've got a great episode planned for you on this beautiful Friday, April the 10th. And the topic for our show today is top strength and stamina tips for martial artists. Now, today's presentation is really special because we've got some excellent fighters and we've got some excellent martial artists with us. For those of you that this is your first episode to be watching, I'm going to do some introductions here, and then we're going to get started. But before I introduce the panelists that we have tonight, what I'd like you to do, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and log in the box below this episode, and you'll see there's a chat word of our live episode. You can ask us questions, you can post your comments and things like that, and we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead, get registered there, and we will be looking at those throughout the episode this evening. So with that, let me introduce who we have this evening for our panelists. So first up, we have Mr. Richard Osborne Jr., and he is an 8th degree in Taekwondo, and he's the owner and chief instructor at Next Level Sport Karate in Springfield, Missouri. We also have with us this evening Mr. Corey Rose, and he is a 2nd degree in Taekwondo, and he is the owner and chief instructor at Peaceful Warriors Martial Arts in Newcastle, Oklahoma. And we have with us Dr. Ronald Leach, and he is a 9th Dan in Shorin-ryu, 9th Dan in Taekwondo, 6th Dan in Shurite, 4th Dan in Kenjutsu and Iijutsu, and a 3rd Dan in Kyokushinkai. And he is a master instructor at Branson Karate in Branson, Missouri. And your host here, Vishan Borich, I am a 5th Dan in Shorin-ryu Karate, 5th Dan in Kyokushinkai, and I'm the owner and instructor at Branson Karate in Branson, Missouri. So now you know us all, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to hand the reins over to Mr. Osborne.
How's that? Is that better? We're good?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I guess I'm going to start and kick off the show. There was 2 topics that I wanted to kind of go over with as far as training and endurance and other things like that. And I think Mr. Rose is going to go more into details as far as what those activities are. The first thing I wanted to touch on was how we're structuring our classes or how we're working out. You know, we've got the basic techniques, we've got the katas, we've got the patterns, and we do our self-defense or one-step patterns if you're a Taekwondo, or you may have sets if you're a Kempo practitioner. But you know, one of the things that we've tried to incorporate, and one of the things we've tried to do with our training is putting PT. And what I mean by PT, for those of you that have a military background, you know, the physical training part of our training, we implement it in our training sessions. Now, we're an old school throwback system where we move up and down the floor with the old up and down the floor exercises. You know, we bow in, the flags, we move up and down the floor, we do our exercises. But every time that we do a class, between 500 to 800 reps, and when I say by reps, you know, it could be a combination of crunches, it could be a combination of lunges or push-ups. But we try to get between 500 to 800 reps in per class, along with the training. You know, I think that helps build the stamina as far as the techniques. And like I said, some others are going to go into more details of different exercises you can do. But I think one thing that I've seen or noticed from other schools is kind of getting away from that old school training of a warm-up, of getting yourself ready for training. And then also with your training, you build your endurance up with some of the PT. Now, of course, my favorite thing in the world is sparring. And that's what I want to elaborate more on today. As far as conditioning, and not that we teach martial arts as a self-defense, but we don't ever want to be in a fight because we train not to fight. But to me, the most beneficial exercise or the best training to condition our bodies is sparring. Now, by no means do I mean everybody needs to do a full contact sparring. Some schools don't prefer to spar, or they don't spar as much, or they don't do the same kind of sparring that other schools do. Some do Olympic sparring, some do more open tournament sparring, some do the Kyokushin fighting sparring, the full contact, knockdown, drag out fighting. There's so many different types of fighting. But the sparring that what I want to talk about, it can translate to any style or system. But the basis of what I'm trying to base this off or give you a premise where I'm coming from on this is that, we have, as martial artists, when we've done our training in the past, we have taken people that were, I would consider, very strong athletes, and they run 3-4 miles a day. We're in much better physical shape than me. But once they started sparring and using all the elements of your body, when you're trying to block and kick and punch and do those things, and also your adrenaline's pumping at the time because you have an attacker. And I'm not saying that we're fighting full contact, but when you have those elements all into play, most of the time, and I'm not saying all, but a lot of times, those people who are in peak physical shape as far as running and cardio and stuff like that, when it comes to fighting shape or what we call sparring shape, usually only a couple of rounds, and usually their bodies are extinguished. They actually can't fight for more than a couple of rounds. And so there's a difference between being in shape and being in fighting shape. And that's what I mean is not everybody's a full contact fighter. Not everybody's a fighter. But that's what I'm trying to allude to, is that you've got to spar, whether it's light contact, and for those of you that still like the old school full contact type of sparring. But I think sparring is one of those things that has to be incorporated. When you're blocking and you're kicking and you're punching and you're moving with an opponent, you work so many different systems of the body that your body becomes conditioned to that. Granted, hopefully we never ever have to get into a competition where we have to be able to test that cardio with our fighting prowess. But in sparring in sessions and doing stuff like that, now I'm a point fighter, and our system is a point fighting system with the open tournament systems, but I'm not talking about the sport side of things. We actually do continuous sparring. And this is just, again, this is an example of what we do. Just for a warm-up, we do 10 to 12 rounds. We'll do a 2-minute round, and we'll switch. 30-second break in between. And what that's done with our sport fighters, it's built their cardio. But the other thing, too, is that it's built their overall cardio system as far as being able to have the contact, to be able to move around, to be able to adjust, and to attack and do things with different people in different elements. Sometimes it's cold outside, sometimes it's hot outside. If you're hot and it's humid, it can drain you very, very fast, especially if you haven't done a lot of rounds. So, one of the things I think that sometimes, I'm not saying all schools, but I do see sometimes that the lack of sparring in the schools. And again, not every student, not every child, maybe not even some adults want to go full contact or hit that hard, and that is perfectly fine. You can adjust it to whatever system you have or whatever your comfort level is with your students. But what I'm saying is that you really got to look at it and try and incorporate, even if it's light contact, or even some people don't do no contact sparring, but getting in the rounds, being able to move around, and being able to have your win conditioned to a simulated fight. Nothing will ever, ever, ever take the place of a real fight. It will never happen. But if our bodies are conditioned to that kind of activity, as far as sparring, moving, kicking, punching, doing the elements of what we're doing in our classes, I think it makes for a better student. It makes for a more well-conditioned student. And I think you'll find the satisfactory when they're going through, even through katas and patterns and the regular basics, you'll start to see a little bit different cardiovascular. Because, and I'm not saying that you don't need to still run and do those things too, but that is the element that needs to be added in to be able to make sure that your martial arts are ready as far as conditioning goes. So that was one of the things, I didn't want to get into too much detail as far as what each system brings to the other. I just want to make sure that you have a sparring program, or you have something that can simulate that kind of sparring and do lots of it. Sparring. Being from a sports school, we do it all the time, but we don't always do the sport aspect of it. Our biggest activity that we do is more of the conditioning type of sparring, and that's why I wanted to kind of stress out there today. If you don't have it today, to help you become better, get out there, try and spar more than once a week, try and get out there 2-3 times a week. If you can't, then go to once a week, but at least incorporate once a week that type of conditioning in your program, and I think you'll find for better results. That was my section. That was it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Osborne. I appreciate it. I do have a question. Can you go into a little more detail? I'm getting some echoing there, but I wanted a little bit more detail on some specific exercises that you could do with your students. Like, could you share some drills that you do in order to improve their sparring?
Well, sure. You know, some of the things that we do, the legs and explosion as far as power, we do a lot of toe raises, jumping jacks. We also do what I call the four-corner line drill. You take yourself, if you can envision, I'm not very good with visuals, I'll try and explain as best I can, but if you were to put yourself inside of a square and you were to take your feet and do kind of a hop, I don't want to preference martial arts and bunny hopping, but that's the kind of premise I'm doing. You put your legs together and actually hop to each four corners, then coming back to the center. So if you were looking at a square, okay, you had a square, you would stand in the center, your feet would be together, and you would hop and then hop back to the center, and you would touch all four squares. But you would do this very, very quickly. This helps with explosion. But one of the things that I like to see as far as when I look at fighting or stuff like that is to have that explosion. You know, when we look on the sports side of things, having the explosion to be able to explode off the line and be able to strike hard. It's the same element for self-defense too, especially for multiple attackers. If you need to explode off the line to be able to get to an attacker, and because you have another attacker coming, that helps with the explosion. Jumping jacks are great. That four-corner drill we do. Anything that can do to strengthen the legs, stretching. Even though we stretch in our other classes, stretching before you spar, before and after, to be able to gain that strength within the legs. You know, again, I'm talking about legs because I'm a kicker. There's things with arms and hands. We do a lot of bag drills. It is not for, you know, if you want to get strong and you want to get big muscles, those things are with the weightlifting. But you will find if you do a lot of bag work, as far as a boxing standpoint, if you look at boxers' tone when they do a lot of bag work, their triceps, their forearms, their explosion on their punches, that's from doing a lot of heavy bag work. When you do that heavy bag work, you actually build and tone muscles. You won't build it like a bodybuilder to where you can actually bulk up. But what you'll see is you'll see an increased tone. A lot of good boxers always have huge forearms. A lot of that's from just repetitions of being able to hit the bag. So a lot of bag work. If you are a striking type of person and you want to work a lot with your hands, do a lot of bag work. Condition your body to be able to throw the punches. You'll find the toning as far as that goes. That's why a lot of the cardio kickboxing programs are really big right now, is because of the toning aspect of what kickboxing or boxing. When you're talking about working a core, if you're in a fighting stance and you're holding in tight and you're working your punches, you're working your core. Well, the normal lay person thinks I need to do crunches and do those things. But with a boxing aspect, if you're doing bag work and you're constantly working a bag, you're doing 2 or 3 minute rounds, you'll find the toning and you'll find the building as far as that goes. So for the upper body, lots of bag work, lots of hitting the bag, being able to get the rounds in. For your legs, jumping jacks, that four-corner drill I talked about. Also toe raises, trying to build the calves, trying to build the quads with the jumping jacks. And if you also do that jumping drill I just said with the four corners, you also build your quad. That's where it gets your explosion on your legs and also get you that mobility to be able to attack off the line and be able to move a little bit faster. So those are just like some examples of what you can do.
Great. I have another question for you, and that is, how often do you recommend that your students train? 4 days a week, 5 days a week, rest periods? What do you look for?
I would say if you mixing up your activity, I would say 5 to 6 days a week. The one thing that I stress to my kids in my dojo is that going to class 2 days a week, and on average 2 to 3 days a week is what I see a student. I tell them that's not enough. You've got to be out either doing something working cardio. You know, you may not have a wave master at home, but you can be going through patterns. You can be doing through kicking drills and punching drills. You know, if you're training, if you're really serious about your training, you want to make an impact as far as your body, or if you're a sport martial artist, if you want to make an impact, going to the class and going 2 or 3 days a week is not enough. You've got to be at it 5 to 6 days a week. I would say 6 is the max. You need to have that rest day, and you can always, it seems like Sunday always seems to be that rest day for most people, but if you hit it hard Monday through Saturday, I would say 5 to 6 days. That's where you're going to see the results. You just, you know, going 7 days a week, your body can tire out, especially if you've been out of shape for a while and you're trying to get back into it. We're all gung-ho at first. We want to do that, but you'll face that burnout factor. You know, if you go to 5 days and then after 6 months you go to 6 days, But I wouldn't go to the 7 days because we're all going to face that burnout factor. Life gets in the way and things happen. But I suggest 5 to 6 days a week of training and finding some, even if it's just an hour a day, trying to find something that is, even if it's not martial arts, if you're swimming or running or doing something to keep that body active. But if you can, try and incorporate the martial arts aspect of it, depending on what your focus is. If you're trying to tone and you're just trying to get better in shape, you incorporate the patterns and you do the regular martial arts stuff. If you're trying to train as a fighter and you're trying to get better as a fighter, then train as a fighter does. You need to be training with kicking. You need to be training with punches. When you're if you're going out and you're running 5 miles, intermittently during the miles, you need to be stopping and punching and kicking. You need to incorporate that stuff into your body. That way your body is used to being out of breath, but still be able to kick, still being able to punch, still being able to react to what's going on with your body. So, I say 5 days, 6 days a week. If you're just starting out, I go to 5 days a week, and then once you get up to a better conditioning speed, then go up to 6 days a week. So I would say the max would be 6 days a week.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Osborne. You've given a lot of wonderful tips. So we're going to go ahead and head over now to Dr. Leach, and let's hear a little bit of what he has to say about strength and stamina techniques. Dr. Leach,
Okay.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm on. You hear me? All right. I think that for strength and stamina, one needs to look at different aspects of training, and part of that training needs to be cross-training. I think we've mentioned running in that, but that is one thing that really would help most people in the martial arts to build that stamina. Also, weight.
Hold on just a second, Dr. Leach. Just a second, Dr. Leach. I'm not seeing a visual. I'm not seeing a visual on you right now. I'm just seeing, is anyone else, if I could get a confirmation? Mr. Rose, can you see him? You guys are getting a thumbs up?
Can you see me now?
Yes, we can see him just fine.
Oh, okay, great. Continue then.
Okay. I'm going. All right. I was mentioning cross-training, and to cross-train is, I think, very important. Running is an excellent way to build up your stamina. It works well, but it takes time and it takes dedication. It's something that you have to do on a regular basis. Weightlifting is also something that we need to do in the martial arts. But weightlifting, as you know, you can't do it every day. You've got to work a different portion of the body every day and let the muscles rest. So if you're doing the same thing every day and every day, you're not really going to get anything that's out of that for the rest of the muscles. You can do 1,000 roundhouse kicks, and then if you try to do a side kick, it's not going to function because you're building and you haven't had a sufficient amount of training for the other muscles. So we need to break this training up. I think one of the really good ways to train is through kata, and if you try to do 10 katas in about an hour and a half, you'll find out that it's very stressful, and you will build up stamina by doing that, and you'll also practice your techniques in a variety of ways. Kata is different for every muscle in the body, for every kata. So as you work through your training and you're doing kata, this is a very important aspect of progressing. Still brought up. I think I'm not sure what everybody means exactly by sparring, but when I say spar, I mean go for 1 solid minute, 2 solid minutes without stopping. Now this is very important. If we're breaking up, I know in a lot of tournaments I watch, and they may go for 2 minutes for a match, but there may be only 30 seconds of actual physical exercise because of stopping the match and starting it over again and collecting the points in that. And this is it needs to be done, but you're not getting that continuous fighting and the continuous aerobic and anaerobic exercise that you're going to need to be successful. I think there are a number of things that absolutely need to be done, and Corey also, it was mentioned that stretching, and I feel this is that's where we start our evening by stretching, because if you don't do that, you're going to injure yourself. But there's a good balance between being overly stretched and having muscle. And if you have too much muscle, then you lose the ability to stretch. And if you're too stretched, then your muscles aren't as tight and don't work as well. So you find that very large and muscular people don't have a lot of range of motion through a lot of their joints, and this can be a problem to the martial artist because you need to have that range of motion through all of your joints. Also, I think in the area of I'm blanking out here. In the area of building stamina through kata, running, and weightlifting. Weightlifting also is a good cardio exercise, and if we lift heavy weights, that's one thing. But if you lift a light weight a lot of times, you're going to get a better workout for your heart, and you're going to get a better workout for your muscles that way. Lifting high repetitions of lower weights is going to build you more muscle, and it's not and that's something else that we have to think about as you get older and you do all this heavy training. If you really want to do some hardcore training, and you start doing the strengthening techniques and punching in the bags of sand and doing bag work and kicking and breaking boards and all of this, eventually it's going to catch up to you. And eventually you're going to have some issues and problems with your joints. And you're going to end up with some arthritis, and it's not a very good a good way to end life. So you have to be careful when you're young as well to kind of stretch out your training and be careful of how you treat your body and how you train throughout your career. Because if you damage things early, you're going to pay for it later. And if you're punching into bags into piles of sand, and you're doing hardening techniques and doing the muscle techniques of hitting your muscles and hardening your body that way, at lots of falling. Now, judo people know this. You don't see a whole lot of real old judo people in matches. It has a tendency to take its toll, and it tends to be more of a young person's sport. Same with jiu-jitsu. These things do have an effect on the body, and over a long period of time can be detrimental to you. So I urge some caution, lots of cross training, and don't go to too many extremes. Keep it kind of level, okay? That's all. Back to you.
Okay, Dr. Leach, I did have a question for you while you're still on, and that is, obviously, you're one of the members of our Martial Arts Council who has been around a little while. I hope that doesn't sound offensive at all, but basically you've been around a little while, and you are very fit. And I'm curious as to what is your routine and what would you recommend for martial artists as they age and get more into their golden years of their training? What are some things that you do?
Stretch, stretch,
I think
stretch.
you're on mute.
As you get older, the muscles get tighter and it gets harder. But if you keep stretching, things work well. Again, light weightlifting is good. They've taken resistance training into nursing homes, and they found that in the nursing homes, people that are doing resistance trainings tend to do better in general. So as you're doing things, you need to do them in moderation, but also you need to continue doing them. I a long time ago was a runner, and because of a neck injury, I had to stop. And I also had to stop fighting in the ring. So these kind of things do happen, and when it does happen, then you have to personally reassess how you're going to train and what you're going to do. And there are things that you can do. You can, if you fight in the ring, it's a very difficult thing, but doing can give you the same workout, and it will give you a good sound basis for your art. But if you don't have that chance of damage or injury that you do when you're in the ring. So I stay away from the ring. I do lots of stretching, and I prefer moderation now instead of going to the excess. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Leach. All right. We're going to go ahead and head over to Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right. Let's go ahead and share some of the things you were talking about.
Okay, well, first thing, I mean, these guys have already brought up a ton of great points. It's kind of funny, I usually make some comment apologizing about my hair being all crazy. When we do these shows on Friday night, we have a class that's exactly like what Master Osborne Jr. was just talking about, where we do nothing but continuous sparring with small breaks in the middle. Sometimes 45 minutes. Generally, we go more close to an hour. Now, when we have tournaments, sorry for the cheeseburger there. Now, when we have tournaments coming up, we might do point sparring or Olympic sparring or Kyokushin or something like that. It just depends on the type of tournament and the fighters that we have. We have guys that compete in a lot of different kinds of tournaments. So when it comes down to sparring, I just want to add on to that a little bit. We use a lot of light to moderate contact unless we're getting ready. We got some guys getting ready for some more full contact stuff. And then, you know, there's a few guys that'll get together and do that. Regardless of whatever kind of training you do, obviously the more you do it, the faster your results will come. So like Master Osborne Jr. was saying, he was recommending, you know, 4 or 5, 6 days a week. Then you always have to start somewhere. And that's the way that I talk about when I get people come into our cardio kickboxing and they want massive improvements in a month or 2 months. That's exactly what I tell them. You got to start somewhere. Start at 3 or 4 days. But if you want massive improvements fast, you got to move up. You always have to have your rest day and your rest times, but you got to do a lot. But even if you don't do a lot, even if, say, you do 3 days a week or 4 days a week, I think what really is important is the consistency of it, that you make sure you're very consistent in how hard you're training each day that you do train. Now, I agree, 2 to 3 classes a week, that's not nearly enough to become a good martial artist or to get in really good shape. You need to be doing some stuff outside of class too. And I always tell people 4 to 5 days a week at least be doing stuff. Not necessarily the same stuff every day, but you still need to be doing that stuff every day. I also agree with Dr. Leach in you need those rest periods, but that doesn't mean you can't go 6 days a week. It just means you work your legs one day, their legs may be a little sore the next day, so work your shoulders, or then work your arms, and then work your core, whatever the case is, and work it all together. I like to use exercises that are dynamic. So basically sparring is something that's considered dynamic versus your traditional type of exercises such as heavy weightlifting and things like that. The dynamic movement engages more muscles in your body, just like Master Osborne Jr. was saying. So when you're in your boxer stance or you're in a kickboxing stance or you're throwing techniques, your muscles are hitting at different angles and they're hitting at different levels and you're squeezing them at different times, different places. So you're able to strengthen your muscles to throw power into different angles rather than just learning strength in one direction. You start to gain yourself more strength in multiple directions. I know he also was saying didn't want to use the term hopping with martial arts or bunny hops. I'll use that term. I'll straight up say it. We use a lot of bunny hop type stuff in our training, fast footwork drills where they're using ladders or rings or whatever. I also like to mix it up and do it with the hands too. My base is in a lot of kicking, that's true, but I have horrific hip flexibility. It's something I've fought for years and years and years, and that's why I'm in the art I'm in. That's why I'm in a kicking art. It's sort of part of a therapy, I guess you could say, for my hip joints. But I need to rely on my hands more than the average person in my art, so I do the same thing. I adapt the same drills with my feet as my hands. So say you're doing a fast footwork drill, maybe you've got a ring, you got both feet in it, and you're stepping out, out, in, and you do that drill for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I'll turn around and then I'll do it with my hands too. I'll get in a push-up position, do the same drill with my hands. Maybe I'll put a block in the middle, so I'm going up and down on both times. And we all know there's lots of different ways to work out. Dr. Leach had mentioned forms. I am a little different. Our school is a little different in a lot of ways when it comes to forms and form competition than we've seen a lot of other schools do. I'm a firm believer in teaching that I don't care if you have 18 moves in your form or if you've got 120 moves in your form or if you've got 600 moves in your form. You should be exhausted by the time it's over. You should have put every amount of power you can into every move. You should be squeezing your core, your back, your legs, pushing with your legs, even if it's just a punch, even if it's just a high block, making sure that you're applying all the muscle possible into those moves. And I know still to this day, Master Osborne Jr. has seen a video of me doing a form before. I am exhausted. I do one form and I am flat out, and it takes me a second to be able to get back in and try to jump into another form. I do 3 or 4 in a row and I'm out. I'm really exhausted at that point. But it's important to learn how to keep going. So when we do sparring drills or we do sparring classes, which we mix it into our classes different times through the week, but we do have set classes we do sparring as well. I always like to talk about being tired before you train, especially if we're going to be doing something like sparring, something like grappling that day. Maybe we're working self-defense techniques, because if you are attacked on the street, adrenaline's going to kick in. When that adrenaline kicks in, like it's been said already, even people who are in fantastic shape, who can run 10 miles, I can't run 10 miles, but I've had people come in here that can, and yet they can't go 2 or 3 rounds in the sparring ring because that adrenaline of someone trying to hit them. And they get tense and they don't know how to work all the muscles in their bodies together. They don't know when to be relaxed and when to be tense. They don't know how to play their body out, play their muscles out to have the most stamina and endurance that they can to last the longest. They don't know, like I say, the biggest problem I see is they want to stay tense all the time. So they're always really jerked up and not knowing when to relax and when to go tense at those split-second moments. Now, my favorite type of training, I've always been a smaller guy. I used to lift weights. I did for a long time, and I was never one that could bulk up. I've been told it's because I can't eat enough. I just can't figure out how to eat enough food. But I started a few years ago, using low-impact, high-intensity interval training. I think a lot of you guys are probably familiar with the term, but if not, it's basically using lightweight or no weight. I like to use resistance bands or maybe just traditional exercises such as push-ups or whatever. I'll do it with the ring drills for cardio stamina. Maybe we'll do it with some bag work or some shadow boxing, whatever the case is. But the idea is it's nothing heavy. There's no heavy weights involved. But you go as fast as you can and you go as hard as you can for a set amount of time. Doesn't matter how many you do. If you do three push-ups in 20 seconds, if that's the best you can do, fine. That's a place to start. If you can do 23 in 20 seconds, even better. Just go as fast, as hard as you can. But it's really important. The thing that a lot of people mess around with is they get too involved in trying to get the high numbers, and they forget to do the exercise correctly. And that's more important, far more important than getting high numbers on something like that, is make sure you have correct posture, you're balanced correctly, you're going all the way through the motion. I think we've all seen the little dip push-ups. Yeah, I think everybody's had those students that barely bends the elbows. You know, you want to go all the way down through every exercise that you do. And the reason, but you want to still do it as fast as you can. And the reason I like this training is it develops what's called fast twitch muscle, versus when you do lift heavy weight and things like that to bulk up, that's a little bit more of a slow reaction muscle. Fast twitch muscle, when you do these exercises with the speed as quickly as you can, it tells your muscles to remember or to be able to come off explosively, like it was said before. You learn a lot more explosive movement, whereas I may not be as strong, I may not be able to lift as much weight as this guy beside me, but I can hit 5 times faster from my hand from this point A to point B, can get there 5 times faster. Now, why is that important? Well, 1, you only have openings for a split second a lot of times. 2, I put this in a blog, but science. If you really think about it, I wrote this down so you guys can see it, so I'm not very good at explaining it. Kinetic energy, or in this level, the power transfer from a contact point to a contact point, is equal to mass, so mass is important, that's your strength, that's your bulk, times velocity squared. It's that little 2 right there is why I'm bringing this up that's really important. Now, that's all divided by 2, but this is all that we're worried about, this part right here. And what this basically means is that the amount of speed, the amount of velocity behind your strike counts for twice as much towards your power rating as your mass does. So can a small person hit harder than a larger person? Yes, and very much time in the martial arts, and you'll see that. You see these little guys that can, wow, they can just really, really knock you around if they want to. So that's one of the reasons I like doing this. It builds those fast response, fast twitch muscles for good reaction time drills. I want to go ahead and add in a drill that we do that helps with reaction time. We talk about explosive reactions. We might get 2 lines. We basically have a race about it, and there's one person at the front of each line holding a bag or a pad. We'll choose a kick, a punch, whatever the case is, and there'll be one person judging. Say we're going to throw a right leg round kick. We'll just put it a right leg round kick. And one person says go. They both throw the kick. One gets there first, gets to go to the back of the line. One that misses gets 10 push-ups before they go to the back of the line. Or if they feel like they hit at the same time, they say go again and again and again until one person hits it before the other one does, and do it really fast until someone gets it first. That'll help a lot of that explosive stuff. But that high-intensity interval training, there's lots of ways to do that. One of my favorite ways is to take different exercises and you can do it for, like, say, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes. Sorry, I'm being shot in the side of the head. And we'll basically take exercises, and we will do 20 to 30 second sets. So you do as many as you can, full range of motion for 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Take a 10-second rest, but only 10 seconds. After that 10 seconds, you do that same exercise again. Repeat this 5, 6 times. Doing that same exercise. I like to do even numbers because maybe you got exercise that has to go one side to the other. But 5 or 6 times with only that 10-second rest. Then maybe take a 30-second break, pick a second exercise, do it the same way. If you do 6 exercises, that's pretty much right at a 20-minute workout right there. Another way I like to do it, and this is how we do our cardio kickboxing, is in between exercise changes. So we do our 6th exercise, instead of doing a 30-second rest and then another exercise, we'll do 30-second rest, then 2 or 3 minutes on the bag, doing combinations on the bag, and then another 30-second rest, then back to the next exercise. Then there's other ways of doing it where maybe you do 30-second intervals with 1-minute intervals with a 30-second rest, and that's another way a lot of people do it. Maybe do 1 minute of the push-ups, 30-second rest, another minute of the push-ups, and that way you maybe just do 2 intervals instead of, say, 6 intervals. It's easier to work the timer if you're doing it by yourself that way. And the other reason I like that workout, especially people that want to lose weight, is it's competitive. You don't have to compete with other people, though you can. It kind of makes it fun. But you can compete with yourself. Say you pay attention to how many of each exercise you get. So you write that down, and then the next day you do that particular exercise. Maybe it's in the next week or whatever. Then get back to your old numbers and say, okay, can I beat this now? the thing that I feel like is important when it comes to stamina, strength, and endurance training is not doing the same things over and over. And I go so far as not even saying don't do the same things every day. I go so far as to say don't even do the same things every week. So if I'm training Monday through Friday, I've got this 5-day training schedule. I'm going to do certain exercises Monday, certain ones Tuesday, certain ones Wednesday, certain ones Thursday, certain ones Friday. But then the very next week, I'm not going to do those same exercises again. I'm going to pick different exercises that focus on the same muscle groups and do a different set of exercises. The third week, maybe a different set altogether. Now, on the fourth week, maybe I'll cycle back and do my first week's exercises again. That way, I'm not plateauing out on my different exercises, and it's giving me an opportunity to work it at different angles, to work exercises at different angles, and to try things in as many different ways as possible. And as I always say, regardless if you're doing exercise, regardless whether you're doing striking, when it comes to martial arts especially, I say this is more, I know a lot of other people that say this too. I tell my students, the key to any strike is to be able to put your core and your base into your strike, whether it's a block, whether it's a punch or a kick. Being able to engage your core, and when I say core, everybody thinks abs. Your back, the core of your back is just as important, if not more important. Most people ignore their back. Very important to have that strength, and that's just for common health. Your posture. I've had back problems most of my life, and it was because in my earlier years I didn't work my back much. My back was really weak. So in order to start working my core muscles, I had to work my back muscles first to get myself caught up to that. But if you can engage those muscles into every strike and every block, then you'll see your power go through the roof, as well as if you can mix your speed by developing fast twitch muscle, which, as it's been said, developing fast twitch muscle is kind of the difference between toning your muscle and bulking your muscle. So it's the difference between having that real sharp tone and actually having that just large, slower, stronger muscle. And I say stronger, I hate using that term because not necessarily. I've seen some little guys that do this kind of training that can still lift more than even some regular weightlifters. So it can go both ways depending on your body type. The other thing I was going to say is always work out to your body type. A lot of people kind of try to force things too early, I think. So someone wants to lose a lot of weight in their gut and they immediately go into crunches but can't do a crunch properly or can't do a sit-up properly. Start with something easier like a leg raise or a rowboat position, something like that, until you get used to using the muscles that you're not used to using. It's been a long time since you've used them. You got to start slow. Anyway, I could talk on this for a long time, so I'll go ahead and call it right here. And don't forget to stretch. Stretching is all important. I didn't stretch enough in my younger years, and that's why my hip joints are totally locked. My flexibility issues are not in my muscles, they're in my joints, and you do not want to end up with those calcium deposits and those problems, because getting that worked out is extraordinarily painful. So make sure you are stretching every day and not the same stretches every day. Make sure you're mixing that up just like you would your exercises. Thanks for listening to me, guys.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Mr. Rose. Those are some great tips there, as always. I have a few things to add, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So for those of you that are watching us live tonight, go ahead and type in the box below any questions you have, and we're going to open up the panel here. I wanted to just share briefly my own experience with how I exercise and how I work with my own students in our dojo here in Branson. And one of the things I really stress is, I call it the pillar of three. The pillar of three is stamina, strength, and flexibility. You really have to work all three of those in order to be of good fitness and health. If you miss any one of those pillars, it's like a three-legged table, okay? You have 3 legs on a table, you lose a leg, the whole table falls. Well, it's the same thing with that pillar of three, with your strength, stamina, and flexibility. If you lose one of those, your health is going to fail you. So what do we do? What are some of the things that we do in order to increase that? Well, specifically for stamina, one of the things that we do a lot of is jump rope. And you don't even have to own a jump rope. If you're a martial artist, most of us have a belt, either a karate belt, or if you're in Kung Fu, you're going to have a sash. You can actually use that as a jump rope. And we do that in class, and we tie it in. For those of you that do have a belt, we do karate, and with the belt, I'll have them take their belt off, and we'll do a number, maybe 10, 20, depending on the age, reps of the jump rope or belt, and then they have a race to see who can tie it properly the fastest. So it kind of works two things. It turns it into a game, and they also get better at tying their belt that way also. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing that I think personally is the perfect exercise is the burpee. Are you guys familiar with the burpee? If not, look it up online, look up on YouTube the burpee, and it's B-U-R-P-E-E. And these, we do a lot of these, especially for people that are looking to lose weight and increase their stamina and strength. For that one, it's a really great exercise. It works the legs, it works the arms, works the chest, works the core, and it works your stamina because you're jumping when you do it. So that's another great exercise. As far as strength, one of the things we do, I recommend weights, lifting weights. You don't have to have a whole weight kit in order to do this. In fact, if you don't have any weights at all, you can even use soup cans. Okay, you can get a pretty big size soup can, or even have some smaller ones and tape them together, and you can use those as weights. You don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money, but just some regular dumbbells, and use those to do curls. Use those to do lunges. Have them in your hands as you lunge with your legs, and that really strengthens your legs. And then I believe in the kettlebell. That's kind of become hot again. Those are kind of old school, but they've come back again, and you can use that in order to strengthen your legs. You can do squats with it. You can do one of my favorite, which is the kettlebell swing, and you can look that up. The kettlebell swing is really good to improve your leg strength. And then, of course, without weights, you can do different types of push-ups. We have done all different kinds. You think it's just there's one way to do push-ups. There's literally hundreds of different ways that you can do push-ups. And one of the ways that I've done it in the past that's really challenging is you'll get like either a basketball or a heavy ball, and you put it on the ground, and you put one hand on it and the other one on the ground, and try to do a push-up that way, and then roll the ball to the other hand and do push-ups that way. Or you can do it where you hop over the ball with your push-ups. That's really challenging. And then finally you finish by putting the ball in front of you and put both hands on it and do a push-up off the ball right in front of you. So these are just some ideas in order to increase your strength. And then that third leg is your flexibility. None of those things are going to really work well unless you have some flexibility, especially as a martial artist. You want to be able to be flexible in your legs, your hips, your arms, everything, because we use it throughout our art. So make sure you're doing not just leg stretches, but that you're stretching your arms out. We use a lot of partner stretching in our school. So we'll have a partner, we'll be on the floor, we'll have them help stretch our legs out. You can look up partner stretching online, and you can find some things like that. We also do it on the wall, where you'll have a partner, you'll be standing up, and they will help lift your leg up. And they also get a good workout because you have them get in a good stance, put the leg on their shoulder with their partner, and then that person who is helping you lift your leg is using their stance in order to help lift it. So it really does work both partners. There's a lot of creative ways that you can stretch, but definitely incorporate that into your workouts in order to increase stamina, strength, and flexibility. I want to give 4 tips, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And the 4 tips are, if you're planning a workout and you want to have success in developing this strength and stamina as well as flexibility, number 1, base it on small chunks of time. I think one of the things that a lot of folks think is that you have to have an hour or 2-hour workouts every day in order to see results. And that's not the case. In fact, there's been a lot of studies done where you really don't need as long of time to have results. You just need to have a dedicated time in which you actually are exercising. And that dedicated time can be as short as 15 minutes a day, as long as you're really putting everything into it and you're not just standing around. You actually have to put something into it. So small chunks of time are going to lead to improvement. It's also going to keep you into your workout. If it gets boring and if it's too long, then you're probably not going to continue working out. So keep that in mind. So the second one is to make sure you do strength train. In other words, do the weights and this, that, and the other. But more importantly, train in your art. So don't just go and work out with weights and do all this. You need to do strength training by using your art. And I think Dr. Leach mentioned it. Actually, I think all of you mentioned it, was using your forms as a way to improve your strength. By doing kata or forms, that right there is one of the best ways that you really improve in your strength and your stamina. Then third is road work. And road work is, don't forget about getting out and running and moving your body. By getting your body in motion, that's going to help you and improve your stamina. And again, road work can be as simple as going for a run or a jog, or it can be as simple as actually shadow boxing. Get outside if you can, or if you've got a nice place in your home where you can do it without hitting anything, shadow box and practice your techniques. Or if you've got a heavy bag, hitting that bag. So I call all of this road work, because you're really just getting out and moving your body. You're pounding the pavement if you must. And then finally, the fourth one, don't forget about your abdomen, your stomach muscles. You want to make sure that you have a strong core. Not only is it important for your overall health and fitness, but it also serves as a martial artist as a place for you to protect yourself. It's like a shield, because you get hit a lot in the abdomen. So if you don't have a strong core, you're gonna really feel that when you're sparring. So make sure you're working your abdomen, not just with crunches, but by doing different movement. By even sparring itself, that helps to work your abdomen. And as always, if your routine is getting boring, reach out to your instructor if you're a student, or reach out to other instructors and ask for tips if you're an instructor yourself and you're looking for new drills and techniques in order to improve you and your training. So I hope this helps you out a lot. I hope you guys were taking some notes. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. And I think, Mr. Osborne, you said you had a few things to add. So I'm going to hand it to you, and I'm going to check and see what questions we might have.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to elaborate again on my sparring. Dr. Leach brought up a good point. When we were talking about conditioning sparring, I think Mr. Rose said it too, the continuous sparring is what I was referring to. When you're doing your sparring, we're a point sparring type of school, but for as far as cardio and conditioning, those 2, 3, 4 minute rounds, Dr. Leach brought up a great point. That needs to be a continuous round. You need to be constantly moving, almost like a semi. If some of you guys are from the 80s, the old semi-contact kickboxing rounds, those are the kind of rounds that I'm talking about as far as trying to have those conditioning rounds, 2, 3, 4 minute rounds of just continuous fighting. And that actually, believe it or not, it actually helps when you get to the point sparring type of things. If you're able to do a 2 or 3 minute round of constant moving and fighting, then a point fight usually doesn't seem to be too bad, or even lesser things doesn't seem to be too much for conditioning. The other thing I want to go into, part of my day job during the day is in the healthcare industry, and with the healthcare industry, I deal with physical therapists during the day. I tell you what, martial arts may not be an exact replacement for us as we get older in age, but it is a nice supplement to physical therapy. When you talk about Taekwondo or even Japanese styles, when you're talking about movement, katas, patterns, stances, all that is circulation of the body. That all makes the blood flow goes good. That's stretching. So, as we get older, and some of us that are older martial artists, as we get older, we can stay in great shape. It doesn't have to be a physical therapy in the essence of going to a gym and having that kind of physical therapy as we see in the healthcare industry. But martial arts can be a very nice replacement. Some of the PT and stuff that we do, we may have to switch out for students, or as we get older, we may not be able to do things that we used to do. And those things are fine, but it is a nice replacement for that type of physical training.
I think we may have lost him. He said his battery was dying, so but I think we got the gist of it. That's excellent to some of the physical training that he mentioned. So I don't see any questions that have come through. I checked my email too. I haven't got any today. I don't know if any of you had any last words before we put a bow on it and close for the night.
Yeah, I'll throw something in there with him bringing that up. That's actually a very important point. I was talking about how I've done different kinds of martial arts through my life, but I got involved with Taekwondo as a physical therapy for myself because of my hip joints and my hip joint flexibility, and I couldn't find another art that was more difficult on working the hip joints than Taekwondo. So it's helped me a lot. Now, that being said, he was talking about changing things for some students, and yes, sometimes we have to do that. But we had a guest on this show, Miss Lisa Grossenbacher, not very long ago, and I don't know, she may kill me for saying this about her, but she has CP, and she walked in here barely able to walk. She'll admit that. She walked in here barely able to walk. She's been with us for 8-9 months now, I believe, and just this last Saturday we were doing something, kicks on the wall, classic Taekwondo drill, trying to hold your leg out while you're on the wall, and you know, she was holding it out at my waist level, maybe slightly below my belt, which was incredible considering she could barely lift her legs, and she's talked about that a few times in here too, about sort of an add-on to her physical therapy. And we also have a lot of kids, and it's amazing how many kids I've seen in here who have turned a femur. I don't want to use the wrong word, but their feet are turned in, and they can't turn their legs to the outside, and they have to go to physical therapy for that. And our basic stretching and things like that really do help with that. If you're not sure, if you are pushing a kid, maybe you've got somebody in your classes and you're pushing them through their stretches, and every time they sit down and spread their feet out, they bring their toes inside to the ground, and every time you raise their toes up and try to tell them to keep their toes up, their knees bend and they can't go any farther, then you might be dealing with exactly that. You might be dealing with somebody whose hips are just turned in. So beware of that, and make sure that more important, when you have someone like that, more important than the stretching is to get them to turn their legs the right direction. So bring their feet closer together, turn their feet the right way, and get them used to keeping their knees straight first, and then you can push a little at a time. I just wanted to go ahead and throw that in there while he brought that up.
Thank you so much. Dr. Leese, did you have anything to add before we close for the evening? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for being on the episode this evening. I think we all shared some really great information. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you on our next episode. We'll be announcing the date on that one. It may not be 2 weeks from now, so be looking in your email. Be sure to check our blogs. We've been posting some really great blogs out there for you all. Check that on MarshallWayNetwork.com. We'll see you next time. Have a good evening.